All right, so getting ready to do a service on this Craftsman big wheeled weed trimmer. And most likely it just needs a carburetor cleaning. So the prior owner told me that her son had already gotten into it and started messing with it. And this is missing the bolt, so I'm gonna have to source one of these out of the Horde. But you can see they kind of mess with the spring a little bit. That's not a huge deal. We can bend this back and put everything back in place. But first, we're gonna pinch off the fuel line, and then we'll take everything apart. Let's see what kind of shape this air filter's in. Surprisingly, it's not bad. It's got one of these pre-filters. This is still good. Nothing wrong with it. So the normal 3 5/16 bolts. Pull this off. Kind of up and out of the way, I guess. The gasket's still on it. Now the correct way to take these carbs off, if you haven't watched my channel or other videos before, is first you have to get access to the fuel line clip. Pull that back. I like to use my handy panel clip pliers on fuel lines, so I just stick these right there. There we go. 3/8 inch socket. Pull both of these. All you do is rotate her down just like that. Our O-ring stayed behind. Now what I'm gonna do is turn on my air compressor off camera and blow all this out. That thing's really noisy, so you guys don't really need to hear it. But we're definitely gonna clean that up a bit. So I don't forget, we're gonna pull this spring off. Just kind of pull it out. Bend this back in place too. Kind of self-explanatory on how they go back together. But all I'm doing is just bending it back to its correct shape. They sure did a number on this, so it's actually bent in a couple different areas. But all we do now is just grab the long end, stick it back in the big end, pull back, and then put that end through there. And if we need to adjust this, we can, but I'm not going to mess with it just yet, not until we get everything put back on. We got some debris in the bottom jet. On these all metal Briggs carbs, normally where they gum up is with this. So you just want to make sure that this is all nice and cleaned out. And you can see that there is debris inside of the bowl. That's not good. So we'll pull the float pin. And the float and the needle. End of the needle looks good. Everything looks good here. So I've got a small piece of wire going through this part of the carb. This is another common issue with, I'm going to shoot some carb spray in here, clean it out a little bit. So I just blew this out. I ran a wire through the top here, cleaned all that out just like that. So this is all ready to reinstall. And this carburetor should be good to go. But all you do to put these back together, it's really simple. Just do exactly what I'm doing. Put the float pin and needle back in. Free travel. So another common issue with older Briggs engines is the soft parts like to rupture and break. This is the PCV elbow. This is trash. Here's a new one right out of the Horde. So we'll go ahead and install this. It goes on just like that. So grab our carburetor, All we're gonna do is just angle the linkage back into the throttle valve. There we go. So now for the air box, these 5/16 bolts go back in hand tight. Use a ratchet and a wrench. We'll undo this, so then we'll know if we have a float issue. There is fresh gas in this machine, so if it starts leaking out of the carb, we've got a float issue. We'll take the carb back off, but I don't think we're going to have any issues. So apparently I didn't record the last clip, but I got everything back on. I might have to adjust this a little bit because the prior owner did bend it up a little bit. I had to undo that zip tie there just to allow myself to get it back on. I left the little cover off of the top of the carb just in case I have to get back in there and adjust that linkage. I don't know that that's going to be an issue, but if we're all good, we're all good. I still need to pull the plug off and check that. In fact, I can do that right now. That's on there pretty loose. It's actually got a pretty new plug on it. So I think that this had been serviced before. All I'm going to do here is just check the gap. And 30 thousandths is a pretty standard number on a spark plug for a small engine, especially these old flatheads. And there we go. 30 thousandths. Happy with that. So I haven't messed with this exact model before, but from what I can gather, the handlebar here is to activate the belt and clutch mechanism for the front spinner. There is no flywheel brake attached to this, so it looks like we just put it up and run and then hit the primer a few times. But it looks like we have a compression issue. There's almost no resistance. Yeah, it should not do that. There should be enough compression that it'll pull the machine back with me. But that's not good. So it could be that the rings are blown, or it could be that one of the valves is not sealing as it properly should. So unfortunately, we have a compression issue with this machine. I should have figured that out before I started messing with it, but no harm, no foul. This is a hobby after all. But I didn't realize it was that bad until I really started pulling on it. I could have sworn that I pulled on all three of these machines when I had first got them from the people that I got it from. And I could have sworn that this had compression. It does not appear to have any compression now. So I'm wondering if it's a valve seat issue. It could be that the rings are pretty well worn out, or it could be that on this machine it's a lot more unlikely, but a broken flywheel key and a dislodged flywheel not timed correctly can cause a compression issue as well. So I just took off the pull rope cover. And all we got to do now is just undo the top of the fuel tank. So like any other Briggs, I think somebody's been into this before. Which leaves me to wonder what exactly is wrong with this machine. And I just loosened that 3/8 inch bolt right here. Yeah, that was a little weird. They normally don't fight me like that, so I just took the whole bolt out, and now it's just kind of flopped out to the side here. But we're going to pull off the dipstick tube, and that's just a 5/16 bolt. It's holding that in. Just lift this up out of the way. Still into the side of the block. That's what I always do with those dipstick tubes. Now we have 4 bolts that are holding the cover on. Standard spider check. It's dirty. No spiders, amazingly. So the next order of business is we can leave the spark plug in. That's not going to hurt anything. But in order to check the quality of the rings, well, more like the quality of the cylinder, and whether the valve seat has come out or not, we're going to have to take these head bolts off. And, you know, I didn't check, but another issue that could cause compression, if the prior owner was ever into this before, because she did tell me that her son was messing with it, trying to get it to work. I have seen it before where people get a little overzealous and they start really tearing into something, and they'll start taking apart things that have nothing to do with what they're trying to fix. I've seen it more than a few times. It would not surprise me, I'm just saying, that if he had taken off the head and looked in there, maybe put it back on, didn't torque anything down properly if those were loose. Those are all things you can definitely check. So I'm looking at this for valve seats or for rings. It could be something else that this guy messed with and it's causing this issue. I don't know. That's kind of the fun part of messing with small engine stuff that people have dove into before in other cases. So let's see what we find. So good news so far, none of these were loose. I guess you could say this is bad news because this would just be an easy fix, but I broke torque on all of these. Take a hammer and just separate it like that. You can get this out. I'm already seeing an indication here that we have an issue, unfortunately. So that's a lot of wet. That's all oil. Yep. The cylinder is completely worn out. And you can see where it's been burning. A little bit easier on the camera. But you can see there is a ton of debris in the bore. Unfortunately, this machine is done for. You can see there's a bunch of carbon on the valve, the exhaust valve as well. So get a rag. Yeah, I can feel the roughage of the cylinder wall through the rag. That's how bad it is. That is really bad. Now, some of you might ask how something like this happens. And really, it's lack of maintenance. Lack of maintenance causes this. Not changing the air filter in time, running a machine like this without an air filter on it for an extended length of time, not putting the air filter on correctly for an extended length of time and running it, not changing the oil, running it low on oil. All kinds of things can cause this. And unfortunately, at the end of it, this is what you're going to have happen. Your machine's going to wear out, and you know, this is what you're left with. That's what I get for not doing my due diligence beforehand. But like I said, it's really not that big of a deal. Let's look at this and see what the quality of the head gasket is. Head gasket's in decent condition, so there's nothing burnt or destroyed. That little bit of damage down here, that was from when I pulled it off. That's normal. That always happens. Yeah, that's just unfortunate. This machine most likely had a really tough life. So now I'm just draining the oil, getting ready to pull the engine. Doesn't look like it's too bad. Let's see here. It looks like there's just 3 bolts, just like there is on normal lawnmowers. On its side again, 1/2-inch socket. Almost got it off. So we'll need these for the Honda or whatever donor engine I decide to go with. That'll work. Well, engine's off. Pretty dirty, so I'll have to clean that up before I do anything else. So looks like it's a 9/16 off. Amazing. Normally don't come off that easily. So this pulley will not work on this Honda at all. Unfortunately, I don't have a single engine Quantum anyways, like these Quantums, that will work. This one, the shaft is the next size up. This will not fit. Every other Quantum I've got, even the new E-Series engines, the shaft is too big. It will not work. Might work on one of these. It'll work on a junker engine. And you know what? This isn't a Quantum, it's a Classic. And speaking of which, the only engines I've got that it'll fit on are Classics. I don't know if this will work because they don't have the heavier flywheel on them. So the thing might not run correctly. None of the Quantums work. These, the shaft size is the next size up. This is like a really oblong shape, being that it doesn't seem to go on any sort of mower Quantum. That Honda shaft is too big. This thing's a Kawasaki. And that shaft's even too big. I didn't think it would work on that one. So I'm in a bit of a pickle with this thing. I do not have an engine with the same length crank that will accept that pulley. But I do have this. This is a Quantum. It's in somewhat of a state of disarray. I don't remember why I took it apart, but it's got a shaft that will accept this pulley. So here's my idea. Take this block with an assumedly good piston and cylinder in it, swap all the good parts off of this one onto this one. I've already kind of cannibalized this block. I don't remember what was wrong with it, but we're gonna have to figure that out. So I'm gonna get both of these off the shelf. Then here's the other thing. The sump that's on this one is gonna have to come off and go onto this one. Hopefully the shaft here is the same size. If it's not, so over the past couple of years, I've cannibalized a good amount of stuff from this. Apparently at one point I took the governor assembly off that goes to the top of here and messes with this. Anyways, we could probably swap over what's on or not on the other engine for that. But like I said, there's a lot that I've taken off of this. So we're gonna be swapping over a lot of stuff and hopefully we can get this to run. I have rotated the crank. Spark plug is still in. So there is still plenty of compression with this engine.